The space station floated in the darkness of the system like a jewel among the stars. It was home to 12,000 human colonists who had traveled far from Earth to build a new life. The station was famous across human space for one reason. It held the largest school outside the Sol system. On this day, 5,731 children filled its halls, laughing and playing during their annual celebration day. Emperor of the Dominion sat upon his command throne aboard his flagship. His pale blue skin reflected the light of 100 screens showing the station from every angle. His golden eyes watched without emotion as his fleet moved into position. The had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, and they did not tolerate species who refused to kneel. Humanity had refused to kneel. The Emperor raised one clawed hand. "Begin the cleansing," he said. His voice was calm, almost bored. The warships opened fire. Beams of green energy cut through the station's shields like knives through paper. The first explosions ripped through the outer sections, sending debris spinning into the void. Inside, alarms screamed and lights flickered red. Teachers grabbed children and ran for the escape pods. Parents on the communication channels screamed for information. But there was no time. They did not pause. They did not offer surrender. They simply destroyed. The station broke apart in less than 20 minutes. Sections tumbled away, trailing fire and atmosphere. Bodies floated in the wreckage, small bodies in school uniforms, their faces frozen in the cold of space. The escape pods that managed to launch were shot down one by one. They were thorough. Emperor watched the destruction and smiled. He had chosen this day specifically because of the celebration. He wanted the humans to understand that their children were not safe. No one was safe from the Dominion. "Record this moment," he told his officers. "Send it to every human world. Let them see what happens when they defy us." 3 hours later, Admiral Dawson arrived with her fleet. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her ship, the UEF Resolute, dropped out of hyperspace expecting to find a rescue operation. Instead, she found a graveyard. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers. Pieces of the station drifted in the silence, mixed with frozen bodies and the remains of dreams. Rescue teams launched immediately, but there was nothing to rescue. The had made sure of that. Admiral Dawson stood at the observation window of her ship. She did not move. She did not speak. Her hands hung at her sides, trembling slightly. Her daughter Lucy had been visiting her grandmother on station. Lucy was 7 years old. She loved stuffed animals and chocolate ice cream and asking questions about the stars. She had wanted to be a pilot like her mother. A young officer approached carefully. "Admiral, we have confirmed the casualty count. 5,731 children. No survivors from the school section." Dawson did not turn around. Her voice came out flat and empty. "My daughter." The officer swallowed hard. "I am sorry, Admiral. Lucy Dawson is among the confirmed dead." Silence filled the bridge. Every officer stopped what they were doing. They all knew the Admiral. They all knew her daughter. Some of them had children on that station too. Dawson continued to stare at the debris field. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. The grief was still there, but something else had joined it. Something cold and hard and terrible. "Get me high command. Tell them Admiral Dawson is requesting authorization for Protocol Omega." The officers exchanged glances. Protocol Omega was a myth, a rumor whispered in military academies. It was supposedly a plan for total war, a strategy so extreme that it had never been used. On Earth, President Cole sat in his office watching the reports come in. He was a quiet man with kind eyes, elected because people trusted him to keep the peace. Now he stared at images of dead children floating in space, and something inside him changed forever. His advisors surrounded him, speaking in urgent voices. "We cannot provoke the further," said one. "They control 300 systems. We have 42. This would be suicide." Another advisor shook his head. If we respond with force, they will destroy us. We must negotiate. Cole raised his hand and the room fell silent. He pulled up the casualty list on his screen and began to scroll. Names appeared, thousands of them, each one a child who would never grow up, never fall in love, never have children of their own. How old was the youngest? Cole asked. An aide checked the records. 3 years old, sir. A girl named Emma, she was in the section. Cole closed his eyes. When he opened them, the kind man was gone. In his place sat something harder, something ancient, something that remembered every war humanity had ever fought. Authorized Protocol Omega, he said. The advisors erupted in protest, but Cole silenced them with a look. They killed our children. They recorded it and sent it to us as a warning. They want us to be afraid. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the blue sky of Earth. They will learn that fear works both ways. Admiral Dawson received the authorization 30 minutes later. She read it twice, then called her senior officers to the briefing room. Effective immediately, all offensive operations against thee are suspended, she announced. The officers looked confused. Suspended, Admiral, after what they did. Dawson's eyes were empty holes. We are not ready. We strike now and we lose. We lose and their victory is complete. She brought up a star map showing the vast territory of the Dominion. We will retreat. We will pull back from every contested zone. We will go silent. Silent, Admiral. No communications with alien species. No diplomatic contact. No trade. Nothing. She turned to face them. We are going to disappear. And while we are gone, we are going to prepare. We are going to build. We are going to train. And when we return, they will understand what they have done. Captain Henry Blake, her second-in-command, studied the map. How long, Admiral? Dawson looked back at the debris field still visible through the window. Somewhere out there, her daughter's body floated in the cold darkness. She would never hold Lucy again. She would never hear her laugh or answer her questions about the stars. As long as it takes, she said. They wanted us to remember this day. We will remember, and we will make sure the entire galaxy remembers with us. The orders went out within hours. Human ships began withdrawing from every corner of the galaxy. Embassies closed. Merchants packed their goods and left. Within a month, it was as if humanity had vanished. Emperor received reports of the withdrawal and laughed. He told his court that the humans had finally learned their place. He commissioned a great monument on his, a statue showing humans kneeling before him in defeat. He did not understand what the silence meant. He did not understand that humanity was not running away. He did not understand that across 42 worlds, in hidden bunkers and secret facilities, humans were preparing something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was not defeated. Humanity was angry, and an angry humanity was something the universe had learned to fear long ago. The Emperor would learn that lesson soon enough. 6 months passed after the massacre. The galaxy settled into its normal routines, and the death of 5,731 human children became old news. Other species had more important things to worry about. Trade deals needed negotiating. Borders needed protecting. Wars needed fighting. The humans had retreated, and that was that. Emperor enjoyed his victory. He held celebrations every month, forcing his vassal species to attend and offer praise. He unveiled his monument, a towering spire of black stone showing broken human figures beneath his feet. Ambassadors from 100 worlds applauded politely and told him what he wanted to hear. The human threat is finished, his advisors assured him. They have learned that the Dominion cannot be challenged. Believe them. Why would he not? His empire had crushed countless species over 10,000 years. Humanity was simply the latest in a long line of failures who had dared to stand against might. But while the Emperor celebrated, something was happening in the silence. Commander Daniel Price was 34 years old. He had served in the United Earth Fleet for 12 years and had earned a reputation as a ghost. He could move through hostile territory without leaving a trace. His superiors called him when they needed something done quietly. Now he led a team of 6 through the heart of space in a ship no larger than a shuttle. For 4 months, they had been mapping enemy positions. Every military base, every supply depot, every communication relay. They recorded it all and sent the data back through hidden channels. Daniel had lost his nephew at. The boy had been 9 years old and loved building model spaceships. Daniel kept one of those models in his pocket, a tiny replica of the UEF Resolute. Every time the mission got hard, he touched it and remembered why he was here. "Commander," his communications officer whispered one night as they drifted past a patrol, "we have mapped the entire 7th sector. Should we return?" Daniel shook his head. "We have 11 more sectors to cover. We do not go home until we have it all." Back on Earth, in a bunker 200 meters beneath the Nevada desert, Doctor worked 18 hours a day. She was a physicist, one of the best humanity had ever produced. Before the massacre, she had studied technology out of scientific curiosity. Now she studied it for war. Her team had collected pieces of equipment from border skirmishes over the years. Shield generators, weapon systems, communication devices. Most scientists had declared this technology impossible to understand. Disagreed. "Every machine has a weakness," she told her team. "Every shield has a frequency that can break it. Every weapon has a flaw. We will find them all." She was 47 years old and had never married. Science was her life, her love, her everything. But she had visited station once, 3 years ago, to give a lecture at the school. The children had asked her wonderful questions about the universe. She remembered their faces, bright and curious and full of hope. Now those faces haunted her dreams. After 6 months of work, found what she was looking for. The shields operated on a specific energy frequency. By matching that frequency with a precisely calibrated pulse, the shields could be collapsed instantly. She tested the theory on captured equipment and watched the shields fall like curtains. "Tell Admiral Dawson," said quietly, "we can kill them now." On the colony world of New Boston, factories that had once built farming equipment now built weapons. Men and women who had spent their lives growing crops learned to assemble warships. They worked in shifts around the clock, speaking to no one outside their communities. The planet looked normal from orbit. Visitors saw farms and villages and happy colonists going about their business. They did not see the underground shipyards where massive vessels took shape in secret. They did not see the training facilities where soldiers prepared for a war unlike any humanity had fought before. Gregory Palmer ran the largest shipyard on New Boston. He was 60 years old, a retired fleet captain who had come to the colony to live out his days in peace. The massacre had ended his retirement. "How many ships this month?" Admiral Dawson asked during their weekly call. 47 combat ready," Gregory replied. "Another 60 in final assembly." "Not enough, we need more." Gregory looked at the workers swarming over the hulls of massive warships. They were tired. They were pushing themselves beyond all reasonable limits, but none of them complained. Every single one had lost someone a niece, a grandchild, a neighbor's son. "We will find a way," Gregory said. Admiral Dawson spent those months building something more than a fleet. She built a network. Every human world contributed what it could. Industrial worlds provided ships and weapons. Agricultural worlds provided food and supplies. Mining worlds provided raw materials. Academic worlds provided scientists and strategists. For the first time in human history, the entire species worked toward a single goal with perfect unity. Dawson hardly slept. When she closed her eyes, she saw Lucy's face. She heard her daughter's voice asking about the stars. The grief never faded, but she learned to carry it. She transformed it into fuel, into purpose, into cold determination. Captain Henry Blake worried about her. He had served under Dawson for 8 years and had never seen her like this. The woman who had laughed at danger and inspired her crews with warmth and humor was gone. In her place stood something colder, harder, like a blade waiting to be drawn. "Admiral," he said one night, "we need to discuss the timeline. The analysts say we should wait at least another year before we are ready." Dawson looked up from the tactical displays she had been studying for hours. "How many ships do we have now?" 3,000 combat ready. Another 2,000 in various stages of completion. And the intelligence estimates their active fleet at 15,000. Dawson nodded slowly. 1 year, we continue building, we continue training, we continue preparing. She turned back to the displays. And we continue being silent. The intelligence service grew nervous as the months passed. They had expected the humans to negotiate, to beg for mercy, to offer tribute in exchange for peace. Instead, there was nothing. Human space had become a black hole, swallowing information and giving nothing back. They sent probes to human worlds. The probes found normal colonies going about normal business. Children played in parks. Merchants sold goods in markets. Everything appeared peaceful. But the probes could not see what lay beneath the surface. They could not detect the bunkers and shipyards hidden underground. They could not find the weapons caches buried beneath ordinary buildings. They could not hear the quiet conversations where humans planned the destruction of an empire. Admiral Dawson stood on the bridge of the Resolute and watched the latest intelligence reports from Commander Price. The map of space was nearly complete. Every target was identified. Every route was charted. "Soon," she whispered to no one. She touched the photograph in her pocket, the one of Lucy smiling and holding her stuffed bear. "We are almost ready, sweetheart. Mommy is almost ready." In the throne room on Prime, Emperor continued his celebrations. He had killed human children and faced no consequences. He had shown the galaxy that the Dominion was supreme. He did not know that across 42 worlds, humanity was preparing to teach him a different lesson. He did not know that every human who had lost someone was waiting for the moment to strike. He did not know that the silence was not surrender. The silence was a countdown. And the countdown was almost over. 1 year had passed since the massacre. Emperor declared a day of celebration across the Dominion. He invited representatives from every vassal species to attend a grand ceremony in his throne room. It was not really an invitation. When the Emperor called, you came. The throne room was the largest structure on Prime. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. Pillars of black stone lined the walls, each one carved with the names of species the Dominion had conquered. There was room for the humans now, noted with satisfaction. Thousands of dignitaries filled the chamber. They came from worlds across the galaxy, wearing their finest clothes and bringing their most valuable gifts. They praised the Emperor with words they did not mean and smiles that did not reach their eyes. They had learned long ago that the rewarded obedience and punished everything else. Sat upon his throne, a massive chair carved from a single piece of obsidian. His golden eyes swept across the crowd with cold satisfaction. He had broken the humans. He had shown the galaxy that no one could stand against him. This day was his triumph. "Today we celebrate the anniversary of our great victory," announced, his voice amplified to fill the chamber. "1 year ago, we taught the humans that the Dominion is eternal. We taught them that defiance has consequences. We taught them fear." The crowd applauded on cue. None of them cheered for the Emperor. They cheered because silence meant death. A servant approached the throne, moving carefully with head bowed. "Imperial Majesty, we have received a transmission from human space." The applause stopped. The chamber fell silent. This was the first communication from humanity in a year. Raised one eyebrow. "From the humans, how interesting, display it." The servant activated a holographic projector. The image flickered for a moment, then stabilized into perfect clarity. Admiral Dawson appeared before the throne. She wore her dress uniform, perfectly pressed, every metal in place. Her gray hair was cut short, and her eyes looked directly at the Emperor without fear. Behind her, the bridge of a warship hummed with activity. Every being in the chamber held their breath. They had heard stories about Dawson. They knew she had lost her daughter they knew what she represented. Dawson did not smile, she did not threaten, she did not explain, she simply spoke one word. Remember. The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one moved. The word hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall, then began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed off the stone walls. Remember, he slapped the arm of his throne. That is their message. After a year of silence, they send us one word. He laughed harder. Remember what? Their defeat, their weakness, their dead children. The courtiers joined his laughter, though many of them felt cold despite the warm chamber. There was something in Dawson's eyes that troubled them, something that did not look like defeat. The laughter lasted exactly 4 hours. The first reports came from the border systems. Human ships had appeared, not dozens or hundreds but thousands. They dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, moving with coordination that they had never seen before. Admiral Dawson stood on the bridge of the Resolute and watched her fleet spread across the stars. 5,000 warships, built in secret over a year of silent rage. Each one carried crews who had lost someone Each one was armed with weapons designed by Doctor and her team. All ships report ready, Admiral, Captain Henry Blake announced. Dawson nodded. Begin the attack. The human fleet struck the border installations with surgical precision. Commander Daniel Price had mapped every target during his months of reconnaissance. The never saw them coming. On the fortress world soldiers activated their shields and prepared to defend. They had trained for this moment. Their shields could stop any weapon known to the galaxy. The human ships fired a strange pulse that made no sense to sensors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every shield on the planet failed simultaneously. The soldiers stared at their useless equipment in shock. Before they could react, human landing craft descended from the sky. Back on Prime, Emperor received the reports with growing disbelief. How are they doing this? Our shields are impenetrable. His military advisors had no answers. They had never seen technology like this. They had never faced an enemy who had spent a year doing nothing but preparing to destroy them. Ordered his fleets to respond. 15,000 warships received commands to converge on human positions and crush the rebellion. The fleets never arrived. At every hyperspace junction, human ships waited in ambush. They had learned every route they used, every shortcut through the stars. The vessels dropped out of hyperspace expecting empty space and found death instead. Admiral commanded the ambush fleet. He was an old soldier who had fought in a dozen wars, but he had never seen anything like this. They were not just losing, they were being dismantled. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the enemy fleet is requesting terms of surrender. Shook his head. There are no terms. Admiral Dawson's orders were clear. We do not accept surrender. We do not take prisoners. We do not stop. The tactical officer swallowed hard. Sir, that means we destroy them all. His voice was hard as stone. They killed 5,000 children. They recorded it and sent it to us as a trophy. Now they will learn what happens when you make humanity remember. Across the galaxy, the Dominion began to burn. Installations that had stood for centuries fell in hours. Fleets that had terrorized hundreds of species were reduced to debris. Supply lines that had fed an empire for 10,000 years were cut one by one. Emperor watched his empire crumble and finally understood the word Dawson had sent. Remember. It was not a plea. It was not a reminder of their grief. It was a promise. Humanity had remembered every child who died They had remembered every face, every name, every dream that was cut short, and they had spent a year transforming that memory into the most devastating military force the galaxy had ever seen. The Emperor gathered his remaining advisors. "We must negotiate, send a message to the humans, offer them territory, offer them tribute, offer them whatever they want." An advisor stepped forward nervously. "Majesty, we have tried. They do not respond to any communication. They simply continue attacking." "Then what do they want?" The advisor looked at the floor. "I believe, Majesty, they want you." Felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was cold and sharp and sat in his chest like a blade. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. The humans were coming for him. They were not coming to negotiate or to demand tribute or to establish peace. They were coming for revenge, and there was nothing in the galaxy that could stop them. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Dawson watched the reports of victory flow in. Worlds were falling. Fleets were dying. The empire that had murdered her daughter was being torn apart. She touched the photograph in her pocket. Lucy smiled back at her, innocent and happy and forever 7 years old. "We remember," Dawson whispered. "We all remember." And the galaxy would never forget. The war lasted 2 years. Historians would later call it the shortest galactic conflict ever recorded when measured against its scale. The Dominion had controlled 300 systems for 10,000 years. It fell in 24 months. Admiral Dawson commanded the Central Fleet through every major campaign. She slept 3 hours a night at most, and sometimes not at all. Her officers worried about her health, but she ignored their concerns. Every time exhaustion threatened to claim her, she looked at the photograph in her pocket. Lucy smiled at her from the past, holding her stuffed bear, asking questions about the stars that would never be answered. They fought with desperation. They threw everything they had at the human advance. Old ships were pulled from retirement. Young soldiers were sent to die. Ancient weapons that had not been used were activated. None of it mattered. General Brooks led the ground assault on the fortress World of. She was a small woman with a calm voice who had earned her rank through decades of service. Before the war, she had been planning to retire and spend time with her. Her youngest grandchild had been visiting station during the massacre. "General," her aide reported as they descended toward the planet, "enemy forces are entrenched in the central complex. They have barricaded the main entrances and positioned heavy weapons at every approach." Studied the tactical display. The fortress was impressive, built into the side of a mountain with walls thick enough to survive orbital bombardment. They had held this position for 8,000 years. "Do they still have shield coverage?" she asked. "Negative, ma'am. Doctor's pulse knocked them out an hour ago." Nodded. "Then we go through the walls." The human forces did not attack the entrances where they expected them. Instead, they cut new holes through the fortress walls with weapons they had never seen. Soldiers poured through the breaches, moving with precision that came from a year of constant training. The fortress fell in 6 hours. It had never fallen before in its entire history. On Prime, Emperor received the news of each defeat with growing horror. His empire was not just losing, it was being erased. Systems he had ruled since before humans even had writing were now in enemy hands. He called meeting after meeting with his advisors, demanding solutions. Most of them had fled or died. Those who remained offered only silence and fear. "There must be something we can do," insisted. "No species has ever defeated the Dominion. No species can defeat the Dominion." An old admiral stepped forward. He had served for 50 years and had always told him what he wanted to hear. Now, for the first time, he spoke the truth. "Majesty, the humans are not fighting to defeat us. They are fighting to destroy us. There is a difference." "What do you mean?" The admiral pulled up a star map. Red dots covered the former territory of the Dominion, each one marking a human victory. When we conquered species, we left their worlds intact. We wanted their resources, their labor, their tribute. The humans want none of these things. They want only one thing. What? Justice. The Admiral's voice was quiet. They believe you committed a crime against their children. They will not stop until you answer for it. Slammed his fist against his throne. I am the Emperor. I do not answer to anyone. Perhaps not, Majesty, but they will come for you regardless, and we have nothing left to stop them. Captain Samuel Grant led the assault on Prime itself. He was 31 years old, tall and thin, with steady hands and quiet eyes. His grandmother had been a teacher on station. His mother had been visiting her that day. Both had died in the massacre. Samuel had not cried when he received the news. He had not raged or sworn revenge. He had simply volunteered for the most dangerous missions of the war, again and again, working his way toward this moment. The orbital defenses fell first. They had been designed to stop fleets, but the humans did not attack the way they expected. Small ships slipped through gaps in the coverage, deploying weapons that disabled rather than destroyed. Within hours, the mighty defense network was silent. Then the planetary shields fell. Doctor had designed a larger version of her pulse device, one powerful enough to cover an entire world. When it activated, every shield generator on Prime failed at once. Human landing craft descended like rain. They came down on every continent, in every city, spreading across the planet with unstoppable momentum. The military fought back, but they were facing soldiers who had nothing left to lose. Admiral Dawson watched the invasion from orbit. She had wanted to lead the ground assault herself, but her officers had convinced her that she was needed to coordinate the overall campaign. She hated waiting while others fought, but she understood the logic. Admiral, Captain Blake reported, ground forces have reached the capital. They are advancing on the palace. Dawson nodded. Any word on the Emperor? Intelligence suggests he is still inside. He has nowhere to run. Dawson touched the photograph in her pocket. After 2 years of war, it was worn and faded, but Lucy's smile was still visible. Soon it would be over. Soon she could finally rest. Emperor fled through the ancient passages beneath his palace. These tunnels had been built by his ancestors thousands of years ago, designed to allow the royal family to escape in times of crisis. No enemy had ever reached this far. No emperor had ever needed to use them. Until now. Guards surrounded him, but their ranks were thin. Most had died defending the palace. Those who remained looked frightened, their confidence shattered by the impossible defeat they had witnessed. The Emperor reached the hidden hangar where his personal shuttle waited. Freedom was only moments away. He would escape to the outer territories, rebuild his forces, and return to take his revenge. He never reached the shuttle. Admiral Dawson stood in his path alone, her sidearm holstered at her side. Behind her, the palace burned. Smoke drifted through the tunnels, carrying the smell of conquest. Stopped, his guards raised their weapons, but Dawson did not flinch. "You killed my daughter," she said. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "You killed 5,731 children. Did you think we would simply accept that?" The Emperor drew himself up to his full height. Even now, facing defeat, his pride would not let him show fear. "I am the Emperor of the Dominion. I have ruled 300 systems. I have crushed countless species beneath my heel. You cannot kill me. The galaxy would never allow it." Dawson took a step closer. "The galaxy watched while you murdered our children. The galaxy did nothing. They sent diplomats and advisors who told us to be patient, to negotiate, to accept our loss. So we will teach the galaxy a lesson as well." She gestured, and soldiers appeared from the shadows. They surrounded guards, weapons raised. The guards looked at their emperor for guidance, but had no guidance to give. "Surrender or die," Dawson said simply. The guards dropped their weapons. Dawson's soldiers moved forward, binding the Emperor's hands with restraints designed to hold prisoners far stronger than any. Struggled briefly, then stopped when he realized it was useless. "You wanted us to remember," spat, trying to maintain some dignity. "Now you will remember what happens when you challenge the Dominion." Dawson shook her head slowly. "You still do not understand. The word was not for you." "Then who was it for?" "Everyone else." Dawson leaned closer, her eyes meeting his. "Every species in this galaxy is watching what happens to those who harm human children. They will remember this day. They will remember what we did to you, and they will never, ever forget." She turned and walked toward the exit. "Bring him. We have a trial to prepare." The Emperor of the Dominion was dragged from his own palace in chains. Above him, human ships filled the sky like a storm that would never end. The reckoning had arrived. The trial of Emperor lasted 3 months. It was broadcast across every system in the known galaxy. Billions of beings watched as evidence was presented, as survivors, as the full horror of the massacre was revealed to the universe. The trial was held on a space station built specifically for this purpose, orbiting a neutral world. Representatives from every species sent observers. They came to witness what happened when someone crossed a line that should never be crossed. President Cole gave the opening statement. He stood before the court in a simple suit, no medals or decorations, just a leader speaking for his people. "We do not seek vengeance," he said, his voice carried across the stars. "Vengeance is emotion. Vengeance is rage. What we seek is something far more important. We seek to establish a principle that will last forever. We seek to ensure that no species, no empire, no power in this galaxy ever again believes they can murder human children without consequence." The evidence was overwhelming. Communications records showed that had ordered the attack personally. He had chosen the timing specifically because of the school celebration, wanting to maximize the number of child casualties. He had watched the destruction from his command throne and laughed. He had ordered the recording sent to human worlds as a warning. Witnesses for weeks, parents who had lost children, teachers who had survived by chance because they were on a supply run, military officers who had arrived too late to save anyone but early enough to see the bodies. Admiral Dawson last. She walked to the witness stand in her dress uniform, every medal in place. She looked older than her years, worn down by grief and war and responsibility, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "My daughter Lucy was 7 years old when she died," Dawson began. "She was visiting her grandmother on station. It was supposed to be a vacation. She was excited to see the stars." The chamber was silent. Even sitting in the prisoner's dock did not move. Lucy loved stuffed animals. She had a collection of them, over 40 at last count. Her favorite was a bear named Captain Whiskers. She said he kept her safe during hyperspace jumps. Dawson paused, gathering herself. "When we found the wreckage, we searched for survivors for 3 days. We found none. But we did find Captain Whiskers floating in the debris field. He was the only thing I have left of my daughter." She reached into her pocket and produced the old photograph, now worn almost transparent from being touched so many times. She held it up so the court could see. "This is Lucy. This is what the Emperor destroyed. Not a threat, not an enemy, a little girl who wanted to see the stars." Then Dawson did something no one expected. She produced a data pad and began to read names. Emma, age 3. Tyler Martinez, age 5, age 4. Walker, age 6. She read all 5,731 names. It took 4 hours. No one interrupted. No one left. The galaxy listened as each child was named, as each small life was acknowledged. When she finished, Dawson looked directly at, "You asked what you should remember. Remember this. There is no corner of this galaxy far enough to hide. There is no army strong enough to protect you. There is no power great enough to shield you. If you harm our children, we will find you. We will break everything you have built. and we will make you answer for every single life you took." The verdict was never in doubt. The sentence was death. Was executed at dawn on the second anniversary of the massacre, at the exact hour the attack had begun. He was given no final words, no ceremony, no dignity. He died alone, watched by the entire galaxy, his empire already dust. But humanity did not stop there. The 300 systems of the Dominion were dismantled, not conquered, not occupied, freed. Every vassal species was given independence, every slave was liberated, every monument to power was torn down. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years ceased to exist in less than a year. President Cole addressed the galaxy when it was done. "We did not do this for territory. We did not do this for wealth. We did not do this for power. We did this because some crimes cannot go unanswered. We did this so that every being in this galaxy understands. You can fight humanity, you can hate humanity, you can fear humanity, but you cannot harm our children and survive." In the system, where Station had once orbited, humanity built a memorial. It was a great ring of white stone floating in space, large enough to be seen from orbit. On its surface were carved the names of every child who had died, each letter filled with light that would shine forever. Ships passing through the system were required to stop and observe a moment of silence. No one complained. No one objected. Every species in the galaxy understood what that memorial meant. Other species watched and learned. In throne rooms and council chambers and military academies across the galaxy, leaders discussed what had happened. They analyzed the human response. They studied the war, and they all reached the same conclusion. Humanity was not the strongest species in the galaxy. They did not have the largest fleet or the most advanced technology or the oldest civilization, but they had something that no one else had. They had absolute unity when their children were threatened. They had patience to prepare for years before striking. They had the will to destroy an empire that had lasted 10,000 years. And they had memory. They remembered every wrong done to them, and they never, ever forgave. Admiral Dawson retired after the trial. She had given everything to the war, and there was nothing left. She settled on a small colony world far from Earth, far from the military, far from everything that reminded her of what she had lost. She planted a garden, she raised dogs, she lived quietly, a woman finally at peace. But every year, on the anniversary of the massacre, she traveled to the memorial. She floated in her ship, looking at the ring of names glowing against the darkness of space. She found Lucy's name among the thousands and traced the letters with her eyes. "We remembered," she whispered. "We all remembered. The whole galaxy remembers now." She stayed until dawn broke over the distant sun, painting the memorial in gold and red. Then she returned home, to her garden and her dogs and her quiet life. She had done what she promised. She had made sure no one would ever forget. And across the galaxy, in every civilization, every species, every world, a new law was taught to children from the moment they could understand. Never harm human children. Never. Because humanity remembers, and when humanity remembers, empires fall. This was the lesson of. This was the legacy of 5,731 children who never got to grow up. This was why the galaxy learned to fear one word. Remember.